I'm in Tajrish Bazaar, north of Tehran, and I want to show you this herb and vegetable market, fruit market. This past weekend, my sister Badri and her husband introduced me to Tarragon Rice. This is like Persian Sabzee Polo, herb rice, but it has only one herb, which is tarragon, and it's unbelievable. So I'm gonna mess with that recipe when I get home and kind of add some herbs to it, maybe only tarragon, I don't know. But because tarragon is very expensive back in the US, it's plentiful here. I'm gonna go in the bazaar and buy a bunch of it, dry it in the next few days of time I have left here, and I'm gonna take it home, and you're gonna see the tarragon from Tehran in the video.
آره 4-5 تا دیگه بذار.
Welcome back to Cafe Bagheri. You heard me say back in Tehran that I was going to make Persian Tarragon Rice. So here we are. We're gonna start with our herbs, like this herb rice. So what we have is 5 different kinds of herbs, starting with our main attraction, which is the tarragon. This is the actual tarragon that you saw me buy in a Tehran market. This is not all of it. I gave some to my sister and other relatives, but oh my God, this is so awesome. I have a recipe that's in the comments, different amounts of these 5 herbs. 3 of them are cilantro, parsley, and scallion, or small leeks if you can find them. And the other 2 are dill and tarragon. And the dill, I happen to have a lot of dried dill weed, and I'm using dry, but you can use fresh dill. So if you don't have fresh herbs and you have to use dried herbs, if you're substituting, you use about 1/3 to 1/2 of dried herbs versus fresh, right? So I'm gonna go with half, just use a little more. Total of 2 cups of herbs to 3 cups of rice. I have washed and cleaned these herbs, and I'm going to chop them fine and measure them into this bowl along with the tarragon and dill. So here's my scallions, chives if you will. And all you do is make sure your knife is sharp. So next we're going to do our cilantro. Cilantro in Farsi, in Persian, is gishniz. Can you say that? Gishniz is cilantro. So you could use the stems and all, but I know people who just clean out and eliminate the stems. There's a lot of nutrition and flavor in stems of your herbs. There you go. So, same as scallions, the cilantro, we need a 1/4 cup of packed cilantro, like so. We're gonna add it. Now, the last of the fresh herbs that we're gonna use is our parsley, right here. So the recipe calls for 2 cups of fresh chopped herbs. Some of them are fresh, as you saw. We go with full portion ratio of that particular item. Tarragon, the star of the show, has the lion's share of those 2 cups, which is half. So if I was using fresh tarragon here, I would use a cup of chopped tarragon. But I don't have fresh tarragon. I'm using the dried tarragon. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do 1/2 cup of dried tarragon, right? Oh, this is so aromatic. The next item is dill. It would be 1/4 cup if it was fresh dill, but I'm using an 1/8 because it's dried, kind of half the prescribed amount. There you go. So here we have all of our fresh and dried herbs that are going to go into the rice. And at this point, we're going to make really a Sabzee Polo, a traditional Sabzee Polo, but it's going to be heavy on tarragon. The other ingredient, obviously, is rice. I have soaked the rice in a salt brine about an hour ago, right? So it's 3 cups of rice, basmati or jasmine or preferred. And so I have about 4 tablespoons of salt in cold water. I washed it and made sure all the cloudy stuff is out, and then put more water and 4 tablespoons of salt. And it's been brining for an hour. But for the bottom of the pot, to get that crunchy Persian tahdeeg, we need potatoes. We usually cut it in discs, or we use tortillas or flatbreads at the bottom of the pot. My sister back home in Iran that night, when we had the tarragon rice, she had shredded the potatoes and laid them at the bottom of the pot. So I figured, let's change it up. I've never made tahdeeg with shredded potatoes. And it's pretty much like hash browns. You know, when you make hash brown for breakfast, I've already done one. Look at this. This is what it looks like. And you could use a box shredder. But I found this little gadget that my wife had bought some time ago. And I hadn't used it for a while, but check this out. We're going to see if we can make this work. Let's go this way. We are going to first peel the potatoes, like so. All right, so we peeled the potato. I would use 2 to 3 medium to small russet potatoes. If you have other kinds of potato for tahdeeg, it should be fine. Okay, but russet potatoes are preferred. Look at this little gadget. So it's like a box shredder. Look at this. This is what we're going for. See, there's no bleeding. It's clean cut. As you can see, I'm shredding this potato into a bowl of cold water. What it does is it helps the final product be crispier and crunchier. And that's what we're going for in the Persian tahdeeg, right? So I'm gonna leave this in the cold water for about 10 minutes minimum, and then we're gonna run water through it, push all the moisture out of it, and dry it, because you don't want this to have any moisture when you put it at the bottom of the pot for the tahdeeg. Okay, our shredded potatoes have been soaking in cold water for the better part of 30 minutes. And as you can see from the color of this water, this liquid, a lot of the starch has already been removed from our potato, which was what we were going for. We're gonna dump it in this colander, push on it to make sure as much of this moisture as possible is coming out of your shredded potato. This is our brined rice. It's been sitting over an hour in a salt brine, and our water is boiling, and we're ready to boil our rice. There you go. I'm gonna put the rice and the salt brine and all in there and make sure I get every bit of that rice. There you go. And you want to give it a little stir. Don't agitate it too much, just a little bit, because you don't want it to clump down at the hot bottom of the pot. I usually put a couple of squeezes of this neutral vegetable oil. Don't do olive oil, just vegetable or this grapeseed. The purpose of that is to make sure the rice grains don't stick together when they're cooking in there. So we're gonna go about 4 minutes. For basmati rice, you go about 4 minutes. If you have other kinds of like some Mexican or Spanish rice, because it cooks faster and it becomes soggy, you wanna go 2 to 3 minutes. The aim here is to have al dente rice. The center of each grain should be hard still when you finish cooking and drain it. All right, about 2 minutes into our 4 to 5 minute boil of the rice, we're gonna add our herbs that we had chopped and prepared, fresh and dry, right? And we're going to kind of give it a mix. So the herbs get about a minute or two of boil with the rice, and then they're both gonna steam together. While the rice is boiling, we have our shredded potatoes. Almost all of the moisture is out of it, but I'm gonna go even further and make sure I dry the shredded potatoes. I'm gonna put a towel. You can use paper towel, but I'm gonna use an actual towel. Now I'm gonna spread the shredded potatoes on here, and then I'm gonna just try to do a good old-fashioned towel dry on these. Okay, I think this is good enough. All right, our rice has boiled enough. We are now ready to drain it. I have a colander right here over the sink. Be careful not to burn yourself. Again, this is a standard part of making Persian chilo or polo. You can see my videos on Persian saffron rice or herb rice, Sabzee Polo, same thing. Look at this. Ah. Watch out for that. All right. Immediately after you've done that, you get some cold water over this cooked rice to wash some of the starch out. There you go. Check this out.
You're going to have cold water on it?
Yep. You do this about 3 to 4 times. And what this does is it washes most of the starch out of the rice and makes for that characteristic Persian rice separation of the grains and the presentation that you want. Looks a lot better. Admittedly, it washes some of the nutrition out of the rice, but it still tastes great and looks fantastic. All right, there you go. One more time and then we should be done. I know someone in Cafe Bagheri family who likes to get a spoon and just enjoy the rice before the final steaming, but at this stage. There you go. Let me know how it is. Great, isn't it? Yeah. So, anyways, we'll let this drain as much of the liquid as possible, about 5 to 10 minutes. And then we're going to put it all back together over there. Our rice is draining here. It's awesome. I can smell that basmati cooked rice. Our potatoes are fairly moisture free. There's a little bit of moisture left, but we can proceed now. I'm going to add all of this shredded potato in this bowl. We're going to add some spices to it. I'm going to add a little bit of turmeric. To this. Just a touch. Some pepper. You can add red peppers. Aleppo pepper comes to mind. That's what they use in Iran for tahdeeg a lot of times. I'm just using fresh ground black pepper and some salt. Pretty simple, because you want your tahdeeg to be flavorful. There you go. Gonna mix all of that. I think I need a little more turmeric in there. The potatoes are spiced and ready to go. Our pot is on medium fire here, and we're going to build up from the bottom. What we do is we need a mixture of butter and vegetable oil. Don't use olive oil because olive flavor, you don't want that in your tahdeeg and rice. I'm going to go about 4 tablespoons of vegetable oil. We need a little more there. There you go. And then we're going to put some butter in there. About 3 to 4 tablespoons of butter. Butter is for flavor, and vegetable oil is just the fat you need at the bottom to make crunchy tahdeeg. Remember, you pretty much, at this point, you're making French fries, shredded French fries, right? So you need fat, you need hot fat. Except butter will burn, so you need a neutral oil with the butter to increase the smoke point. I use grapeseed oil. You can use whatever vegetable oil you have available to you. To that, we're going to add about a tablespoon or 2 of saffron solution. The saffron solution recipe is in the recipe below in the comments. We use it for all of our rice and a lot of the stews. There you go. You do want that Persian saffron color and flavor in there. I'm going to add a little bit of salt in there and a little bit of pepper. Now I'm going to kind of swish this around and make sure it goes up about 3 or 4 inches up the sides. There. Now I'm going to dump all of my shredded and spiced potato in there. Now we're going to spread this around an even layer and kind of press it down Spread it out so you can go about an inch up the sides all around. There you go. Our rice has been draining and it's, look at this, it's almost moisture free. There's some moisture at the bottom, but that's okay. And to my knowledge, this is my sister's original idea, because a couple of Persians that I've mentioned this to, they said, oh, that's going to be overwhelming. Isn't that too much tarragon? But if you like tarragon, this is your rice dish. So we're going to kind of make this into a pretty mound. And I'm going to use the handle of this spoon to make some shafts into this mound. Now, if you watch my other rice videos, the shafts serve a couple of purposes. One, they help to bring up the steam from the bottom of the pot and help dehydrate the bottom. So you want crunchy tahdeeg, that moisture has to escape and come out somehow. These shafts bring out that moisture and promote a crunchier tahdeeg at the bottom. They also, when the steam comes up, it helps cook this body of rice more consistently. What we're going to do is we're going to put the lid back on, still on the medium here, and make sure, check both ways to make sure that the pot is centered, because you want it to brown and cook evenly. You don't want one side to be darker than or whatever, because it's presentation, right? And we're still on medium. You just go about 4 or 5 minutes, and then once you start seeing condensation, once you see the moisture running down the sides, then you're ready to put a gasket on this thing and let it steam low and slow for 45 to 50 minutes, okay? It's almost there now. So what I use is just a good old kitchen paper towel. A lot of people back home, my mom and my sisters, they use cloth handkerchief, kitchen towels. A lot of people use pots with glass lid to be able to observe this. But if you do this long enough, you know how many minutes on your stovetop you have to wait before you put the towel on. While we're waiting for the condensation, we're going to put about 4 to 5 tablespoons of butter and some more saffron solution, a couple of tablespoons in this pan, and melt the butter down. So we got our butter saffron mix almost incorporated. I'll put a little bit of salt over this, about half a teaspoon, and a little bit of fresh ground pepper. And guess what happens now? We kind of drizzle this over our polo, like so. This helps the flavor and the presentation. Now, as you can see, we also have our condensation. So it's time to put the gasket on and go for the long haul. Make sure it has full coverage and your lid has to be shut as tight as possible. Make sure, again, you check your pot should be centered. Now we're going to go down to medium low. Look at this. So we were on medium, and again, every stove is different. You're going to have to test and get the right position on your particular equipment. Medium, between medium and low is medium low. You're going to put it on there. We're going to go for 45 to 50 minutes. Do this. You're liable to burn your rice or not have perfect rice once, maybe twice. But then once you figure out the timing and temperature on your equipment, you make perfect rice every time. I guarantee it. So we're going to go for 15 minutes. I'll see you on the other side. All right, it's been 45 minutes. Our rice has been steaming and it's done. So let's check it out. Look at this. Isn't that pretty? we're going to put this hot metal pot in a bath of cold water. Did you hear that? That sizzle means the metal is going to contract. It separates the crunchy bottom of the rice from the metal pot. And it helps the next step, which is this. We're going to lift this again and make sure that it's dried a bit. Get a round plate large enough to cover the top of your pot and a few inches out on each side. Now you pray to the gods of Persian rice that this will separate and we have a perfect mold. Ha! I think it did it. Here we go. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? All right, we're gonna cut our rice mold. Let's hear this crunch. Check this out. Here it is, our Persian Tarragon rice with the crunchy potato tahdeeg from the bottom of the pot. We're serving it tonight with our own broiled salmon and scallions. We do have a video for this salmon dish. You're gonna love it. Please hit like if you like what you saw tonight. And I'm sure you have already subscribed to my channel. If you haven't, this is a perfect opportunity. Please subscribe and hit that little bell button so we can keep in touch. And I guess this is a perfect time to tell you about the new t-shirts. If you haven't ordered one of these yet, you can go to cafebagheri.com to the shop section and order one, and we will send it to you in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. And I cannot wait to try the salmon and tarragon rice. Come back here and see me soon, okay? I need to find a fork.